Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the webinar today that I will be teaching. I want to make sure you guys can hear me all right before we get started. And if you guys want to let me know that you can see my screen and hear me, just chat in the questions box there and let me know, and we will get started. All okay. All right. So I've prepared some slides today for you guys. Thanks for letting me know you can hear me. We're going to go over this is the class 4. This is kind of like tying it up into scheduling for predecessor and successor services for turf and plant healthcare companies. As Levi had prepared before slides, so I had followed suit as well. And so we're going to get started. These slides are also available in the Zendesk area. So you can get there by clicking the Lifesaver raft at the top right. And I'll show you where those are located at here shortly once I pull this up. Second, in the Zendesk area. So when you click the Lifesaver raft, you'll come into Zendesk here, and it will look like this. And you're going to scroll down and go into the industry series, and you can go into class 4 scheduling predecessor and successor. And once you click in there, it's right here to download. So we'll get started. The first thing is, what are predecessor and successor services? We're going to go over the difference between option 1 and option 2 for scheduling. Most of you guys will be doing option 2. We'll talk about what the difference is, what the advantages, pros and cons of those. We'll talk about naming conventions for your services, how those are set up, also how of course, how predecessor and successors are set up. And there's a couple different scenarios that we'll do for filtering, and we'll go into how that's tied into automation, how that can help your business. And at the end, we'll pause for questions and reflection. So the first thing is going to be, of course, what are predecessor and successor services? They're a tool to use if you have a turf or plant healthcare spray where an application round 1 is done, and then the second round is done a certain amount of days after. You set this relationship up in the service setup screen. It's actually quite easy. What you do is each service can tie into its successor, which is the next round. So 201 would be the first round, and 202 is the successor that needs to be done 27 days after. Now, we have this interval checked, and we have this checkbox as an option, which we're going to talk about what the difference is to have that checked versus unchecked. So option 1 versus option 2. Option 1 is to have that unchecked. Now, that is actually going to automatically schedule it the amount of days set up, which would be 27 in this instance. So if this was for 201 and we had this unchecked, it would automatically schedule 27 days later the 202 based on the completion date. Now, there are some pros and cons to that. I guess a pro would be that it would schedule it for you. A con, though, it might not fall on a date that's applicable for scheduling in certain situations. So what I would say a majority of people will actually be doing is checking the box and using it for unscheduled filtering. So if this is checked, it will disable the successor service from being automatically scheduled when the predecessor service is completed. For example, if you did a round 1 lawn application and the successor was round 2, it will not automatically be scheduled in the future by the amount of days entered in the successor interval. The successor interval below is only a recommendation for the amount of days that the successor service should be scheduled upon completion of the predecessor. It will not limit you when scheduling on the work scheduler, and will later be used as a recommendation for upcoming services to schedule. So like I said, it's very beneficial to have the checkbox on there so you can do your filtering and scheduling, and we'll talk about how to do that. First, let's go into the actual database, and I will show you guys how to set that up under the job information. So when we go in here, it's not actually under job information. It's under the gear cog under your service setup right here. And we have an example is like our turf applications. We have 101 through 105. What we do is 101 is set up, and the successor is 102, and we have this checked. So all these connections are made. If we move through, we have our 102 and our 103 is next. We have our 103 and our 104 is next. We have our 104 and our 105 should be for that one. And we have it all checked to use the filtering option. Remember, because if it's unchecked, it will automatically schedule, but it might not be the best practice. Using the filtering is going to be way more beneficial for you to find out a perfect date for it to fit in your schedule. So that's how to set that up, and that brings us into like a segue here for our naming conventions. You can put these in a program, which is a way to group the services together and add them all at once, which is what most people are doing in the business. They're offering a program for everybody. And what you can do is named your 201 through 205 for an application for a series, and 101 through 105, and these can tie together. You know that you put the 01s together and the 02s next and the 03s, etc. So it's good to have that naming convention to keep yourself organized and know exactly what round of spray you're on, and you can do your filtering. So we're going to go into the filtering options. This is in the advanced scheduler filter. And basically you just need to know what you're looking to schedule, which for this example, I'm looking to schedule a 202 where the 201 service was scheduled 20 days ago. So that's how that relationship is set up. Step one, you just say, I'm looking to schedule this service. Step two, you're looking for when Y service was scheduled before X days ago, or between where Y service was scheduled before X days ago, or between a date range. So to kind of pull up an example here, we're going to go into the predecessor, successor example. We have Jimmy Granger. Now we added in a program. In the third example, I'll show you how to build it up from the beginning. But we added a program where we did the 200s and we did the 101s together. So they're this whole entire group program, which is a program for you guys that are not aware, is a group of services in together. And a group program is a group of programs. So we have a program that's included the 200s, a program that's included the 100s, and those are sold together in a group program for the customer. So we've added those in. Let's go into our 3 use case scenarios. First one is service A has a relationship with service B, such that service B cannot be scheduled until X number of days have passed for service A. So this one's actually very simple. We have this example where, in this example, 201 and 101 are our service A, and our service Bs are going to be the 102 and the 202 that need to be scheduled next. So when we go into our scheduler here, I'm going to take back the filter and show you how I got there. We're going to go into advanced, and we're going to say that we're looking for the, let's go back to our rule here to kind of follow. So what are we looking for right here? Right now, we're looking for the 202s because that's the next round that we need to be scheduled. So I'm looking for the 102, and we're looking for the 102 where the predecessor, the 101, was last performed 20 days ago, and we hit this plus sign. So that follows that rule. What are we looking for at the top right here, and what has been previously performed that we need to look for? When we hit filter, we come up with our ones, our 102s, where 101 was performed a certain amount of days ago. And those are our examples. So that is the example situation number 1, short and simple. Now, it gets a little bit, not extra complicated or anything like that, but we have it where 1 is performed and 1 was actually like not approved. And that's our second example. So in our second example, we have this 201 application. Fertilizer that might have been pitched to the customer at the time, but they already got it performed maybe by another company. So they did not approve that service, and this 101 was done. It was all sold together, but they already had the 201 done from another company. So they said, well, let's just do the 101. So we performed this 101, and the 201 got not approved. Well, we still need to actually look for the next one to be performed because for this situation, we still need to do 202. Even though 201 was not performed, we still need to keep it in the list of progression that we have been doing. So what we do is we go back into our work scheduler, we go into our advanced here, and we look for our 102s and 202s, and we need to see where 201 was also last performed. So this will encompass everything together. So even though it was skipped, we still want to contain it with the ones where 201 was previously performed. So even though for this situation it was skipped, maybe for another customer we did it and we need to do all those together. So this is why we would look for both of those. And we hit filter, and there's the 202s for the two examples that I have here. And that kind of is encompassed in the third example. Basically, A and B have a relationship with service C such that A and B can't be scheduled until X number of days have passed for service C. That would be for an example, different service that you would add in there, like a evaluation, and you would do the same principal process for that. When you go into advanced, you would just be looking for the things that you, like I said, just follow that rule that we go back to, which is what are we looking for? Put it under filter, where what performed previously. So those are kind of the rules to follow for the predecessor and successor examples. And like I said, we're looking for 102, where these ones were performed a certain amount of days ago. Now, you can also, if you're just filtering for the service, if we reset this here, we have also the ability to see pred days, which is in here. And if we ungroup, we can filter by the number of predecessor days. There's 25. So it tells you even there where the predecessor was performed X amount of days ago for the service that needs to be scheduled. So you can technically still look for your pred days as a rule to sort by to see here. So, that's a filtering technique that you can use. You don't have to really use too much of the I guess I would say too much of the advanced filtering for the predecessor and successor. You can just sort by the predecessor days to find exactly what you need. But the actual scheduling part here for the advanced service filter is very beneficial if you use it to your advantage. Like I said before, just know what you're looking for up here and what was previously performed down at the bottom. So those are technically all three of our examples. Now, what we'll do is I will tie how this ties into automation. And show you kind of an example of what we set up. So for these services, we have our 101 turf apps. If we hit the pencil button, what we've done is we've used a turf app mix. So that is an inventory item. And to get to our inventory items, this was covered in previous classes, but if we go to our inventory resources, we have our 101 turf app mix here we can look into. And what we do is we have this auto-calculating a certain percentage of square foot. So it is 0.5 gallons per 1,000 square feet of the total turf measurement. And it auto-calculates time and quantity with our individual single chemicals that are involved. Same thing goes, kind of almost the same principle for the 201s. If we type these in here, we have our 201 that encompasses the FERT here, right? And if we look into that, that is auto-calculated as well. Let's go back in here. That's the 16. So we have, for the 16, we have it a rate of 6 pounds per 1,000 square feet of the tree and shrub area. Now this is, there's two different ways to encompass this with the auto-calculation for certain PHC aspects. What we do is we have the tree and shrub area as a total square footage that we put in the custom measuring tool. That's the route that we're going to show you today. The other route would be to put in per dBH and have a combined dBH for all your trees and shrubs in one area. So what we did for this example is we have it 6 pounds per 1,000 square feet is the application rate. We have it auto-calculating, and we have it using the tree and shrub area. So what it does, how we got these numbers, like for the first example for Jimmy Granger, how did we come up with all this information so quickly is the question, right? So if we go into Jimmy Granger, and I'll show you how much easy it is. Once you have it all set up and connected that way, as explained in the previous classes, you can go into your jobs, and when you have the job for Jimmy Granger, you just add it in here. We have this tied into a program, group program, where we just drop in this turf and tree, and we put in our crew, and we add it to a job. And you can see that the values get incorporated in here. So, And if we say we have our net profit here, 58%, we have the total price, and that is based on a sliding scale. Like I said, that was mentioned in previous classes where we go into the sliding scales, and we have our, one of these here, I think it's a tree. So we have our tree app here, and these are all of our 201s, 202, 203, 204, 205 that have a rate for one over every 0 square feet. We have an increased price of that much, and that's how it increases and comes up with the prices that are there. It takes the measurement that we put, which was the tree and shrub area for custom measure. Model type is custom measure in square foot. So it takes that rate and applies it. Now we can see how it took that rate by hitting this little calculator here. But before we do that, we'll see how that's set up with Jimmy Granger if we see his job site. So his measuring tool, we derived the total tree and shrub area to be 3,000, and that's manually derived. So that's just the value we put in there that can be estimated, that can be put in at the time of estimation, and it takes that 3,000 and applies it according to the rate of the sliding scale. So if we go back, we can kind of see how that breaks down. How did this 225 get in here? Well, if we click on this, we note that there's 3,000 square feet and that there's 3,000 technical increases of this amount to give you the 225. And that all stems back into Levi's Excel sheet that he had that calculated basically what your rate and your desired profit was. That's been mentioned in the previous classes. So that's how we found that increase rate of 0.075. What he did was he took, in this particular example he helped me set up, he took an average rate of all the 200s levels, and we put that in as an average increase. So that's how we got 225 for all the 201, 202, 203, 204, or 201, 202, 204, and 205. And we all have the 100s here that also calculated as well, which is a different factor. But what really want to show you was how that gets incorporated. Because this is all done super quickly, I'm going to show you how to put it in for a new customer, which is going to be air command here. So what we'll do when we put in the customer, we will go into the job sites tab here, and we will look at the particular job site, and we go into the Shauna. So we go into the job site here, and inside the measuring tools where we put in our custom measure here. So what we do is we can add a custom measure here, or add a new measure here, put in our total tree and shrub area, and put in a derived amount or a manual amount of 3,000, or if it was different, such as 2,000 for this area, we can save. And then it will connect that dot because that's how the sliding scale was set up based on the tree and shrub area. So it's really cool how you can do all that, and that will all tie in to the job itself when you add it in as a program. Just back into the measuring tool here, and you put in that 2,000 area, and we just go into our group program. We add in, hit the plus sign to add our tree and turf, estimate our crew of PHC, add to the job, and then we have our values here that auto calculate. So looks like because turf app wasn't tied, we didn't have a turf. We didn't have an actual turf measurement derived from total turf. It was 0. So if our total turf was like 10,000, we could, in theory, save it, and we can scrap this program. And then we can add it back in, and we can see how the total turf kind of ties into all that. This is kind of the last leg of the series that Levi taught, and he asked me to do this program because we've actually worked on this quite a bit together. It's probably one of my favorite things to teach. I also taught it at our users conference, some of this aspects. But the whole game plan is you add it all in here, you set it all up properly, and then it kind of automates itself. You just have to plug it in here, and we have all the estimated time on here. We have the estimated price and cost based on everything involved. So that really ties up kind of how that all how the sliding scales, the pricing models, the automation, the auto calculation of the inventory, how that all kind of ties into the plant healthcare and turf business for Arborgold. Appreciate you guys listening to all this. Does anybody have any questions over the webinar today? It's kind of like the last one, tying it all in together. Does anybody need me to go through that example again to see how that's all set up and how that's added for the customer and how that ties together? So this was more of kind of like a wrapping up. The predecessor successor is pretty easy to set up and tie together. Oh yeah, asking if we're sharing the PowerPoint. Great question. You can get to the PowerPoint. Give me a second here to show you how to get to that. So you can get to the PowerPoint by clicking at the top right, the Lifesaver raft here, and going into the Zendesk Help and Training. And down here, you can go to Industry Series, and you can see Class 4 for scheduling Predecessor and Successor. So that's going to be the summary of what was discussed today. But I appreciate all the feedback, guys. Like I said, this is a little bit of shorter webinar, just kind of encompassing how it's all tied to automation. And I'll ask one more time to see if anybody else has any more questions or wants me to go over how everything was tied in today. Otherwise, we will conclude and end a little bit earlier than expected. So let's see if anybody else has any questions. If you guys have any other questions, how to set this up, I know Levi has shared his email, levi@arborgold.com. My email is also josh@arborgold.com. This is probably one of my favorite things to teach is the scheduling aspect for things. So if you guys have any questions over the presentation, this will be posted up online under the webinar section as well. So you guys can reference this video back in the future. But if no one else has any comments or questions, we'll conclude. And you guys have a great rest of your Thursday. And I believe we will start the next week as the Wednesday webinars again as normal. So have a great day. All right, bye.